Hey everybody, my name is Jack Music, greeting you with lots of love, joy, peace, and aloha. So, this is the introduction to the lecture that you're about to watch, and that lecture is Ecopsychology and Okinawan Religion. Okinawan Religion, A Sense of Place. And I'm doing this introduction because I don't feel like the lecture was... I feel like it was about 80% what I was going for, and it was really kind of off the cuff. I prepared it, I made the PowerPoint and prepared the lecture that day. I gave the lecture at an Anthropology of Religion class at the University of Hawaii at Hilo on Tuesday, December 6th, 2016, and I'm recording this introduction on Thursday, December 8th. And I will probably do the lecture again at UH Hilo. I just wanted to correct a couple of my statements in the lecture, and to read a quote that I forgot to read in the lecture, and to kind of ground things and maybe explain them a little bit more succinctly. So basically I kind of talk about ecological identity, I talk about Okinawan religion, and the tie-in to ecopsychology is that through object relations theory, our sense of identity is formed by our interactions with our earliest caretakers. And also it's informed by our interaction with the natural world. And you can't escape nature in Okinawa. Sure, there's a lot of city, there's a lot of concrete jungle, but there's also a lot of the natural world. And I believe that the Okinawan identity is informed by that interaction with the natural world, with the ocean, the beaches, the forests, the Utaki, which is the sacred places. And so that's the tie-in through ecopsychology. And because I'm an ecopsychologist, when I was invited by Dr. Reichel to do the presentation on Okinawan religion, it seemed only logical to me that I look at Okinawan religion through the lens of ecopsychology. And let me share a quote. This comes from James Hillman and a lecture called A Psyche the Size of the Earth. And this is from the book Ecopsychology, Restoring the Earth, Healing the Mind, edited by Rozak, Gomes, and Kanner. So James Hillman writes, "Sometimes I wonder less how to shift the paradigm than how psychology ever got so off base. How did it so cut itself off from reality? Where else in the world would a human soul be so divorced from the spirit of its surroundings? Even the high intellectualism of the Renaissance, to say nothing of the modes of mind in ancient Egypt and Greece or contemporary Japan, allowed for the animation of things, recognizing a subjectivity in animals, plants, wells, springs, trees, and rocks. Psychology, so dedicated to awakening human consciousness, needs to wake itself up to one of the most ancient human truths. We cannot be studied or cured apart from the planet." And I had wanted to include this quote in the original presentation because it mentioned contemporary Japan, and it mentioned the animation of animals, plants, wells, springs, trees, and rocks. And in contemporary Okinawa and in ancient Okinawa, they do recognize that spirit inherent in rocks, wells, springs, trees, and other sacred places. And that's a good connection between ecopsychology and Okinawan religion. I also wanted to add that down in the comments below, I'm putting a link to every single one of the sources that I cited. I believe in strong scholarship, so all of my sources are below in the comments. This lecture I gave is nothing definitive, you know, it's pretty much completely off the cuff, and it was just created that day. So if anybody who's a real academic watches it and is just like, this guy's off base, he doesn't know what he's talking about, understand that it was, put together at the last minute. I waited until I was done with all of my work for the semester. I just finished my second semester in the Ecopsychology Master's program at Naropa University. So I'm literally only a third of the way through the program. And I'm by no means an expert. I am a student. So what you're looking at is a student's presentation. And in putting together the presentation, I could see a scholarly paper that I could get out of it. But it's not there yet. And one other thing I had wanted to correct on my comments was this darn helicopter. That's ecology too. One other thing I wanted to do is kind of correct myself, because sometimes when you're speaking extemporaneously you misspeak and people can take your words out of context. And I had said, I never want to make a sweeping declaration that all of X is Y. And I misspoke a little bit in the presentation. I said something like all of the protesters at Henoko are the old people in Okinawa. And that is not the case. There are many young people there. What I meant to say is, it is my observation that the majority of the protesters at Henoko are elders. There are certainly many young people who do protest there. But it's my observation that the majority of the protesters are elders. So I think that's about all I needed to say. If I end up watching it again and finding anything I want to correct, maybe I'll do like afterwards or a commentary track. There are many times when I post a video and then later I'd like to leave comments on it, and I've, never got around to doing any director's commentary or doing any commentary tracks. Maybe I'll do that in the future. Anyway, so yeah, without further ado, I'm going to take you to Tuesday, December 6th, 2016. This is K109, that's Edith Kanakaole Hall on the campus of the University of Hawaii at Hilo, and the Anthropology of Religion class. Thank you for watching, and aloha.
So it's our pleasure this evening to have Jack to talk a little bit about Okinawan religion and ecopsychology. Jack is a former UH-Hilo graduate, alumni. I'm currently a graduate student in ecopsychology.
If anybody's got cups, I've got like three half-gallon things of like Passover wine on it. Just send out cups.
It's a party.
Okay,
cool. Final words?
So yeah, just I think go ahead, Jeff.
Get the showboat on the road.
Yeah, just get him with us.
Okay, so my name is Jack Music. I was sitting right where you're sitting now, not too long ago. And yeah, I got my bachelor's in Japanese studies, and I'm working on my master's in ecopsych. And it's
Jack Music, huh? What an awesome name.
yeah, right. Blessed.
It's like names you read a book around.
I'm working on it.
How do you know?
So then, so yeah, this is the first time I've ever done this presentation. I was actually going to kind of do something straight up on Okinawan religion, and then I realized, like, wait a sec, Jack, you're an ecopsychologist, you're a transpersonal psychologist, you should use these tools to examine Okinawan religion. So we're going to get my perspective, and if there is like a, if there's an academic that ever watches this in the future on the video, know that this is like all off the cuff, and I just did this today, and it's all preliminary, and
from.
Yeah, and there could be a paper, an academic paper in this in the future, but right now it's just like observations, and it's just my perspective, and it's like kind of selected facets on Okinawan religion. You could go to the Wikipedia page and it has a bunch of different elements of Okinawan religion, and I'm just going to talk about a couple of them. So here's what we'll talk about. The Nirai Kanai, the Battle of Okinawa, anthropology a little bit, Ecopsych, crash course, the Hinukan, Hatsumode, Ankokuzenji Temple in Shuri, Shurikanado Temple, Ghosts in Okinawa, Kakinohana Fiijaa, Seifwa Utaki, Kudata Island, New Year's, Futenma, and other places, and the Utaki, Obon in Okinawa, and Ohayo Ojisan. So, let's start with the Nirai Kanai, and this is from an article that was on the website Asia Pacific Journal, Japan Focus, by Urashima, Etsuko, and translated by Gavin McCormick. And so, okay, I'm going to read this. This is our poetic beginning. It's not very long, and then we can go to... Hey. Sorry. Not at all. Welcome. Okay, so I'm going to read this whole thing to, I want to kind of paint a picture. And so let's get these images of Okinawa into our head. Many old tombs in Okinawa were built facing the sea. This is because of the belief that the spirits of the dead would go back after death to their original ancestral village, Nirai Kanai, from which also came the gods that bring blessings and fruits. The tombs of the hamlet of Sadake in the depths of Ura Bay are clustered, overlooking the sea along the snowy mountains beyond the village. From their line of vision, nestled in the Kusaki Mountain, the ancestors, the Afafuji, would see Cape Henoko off to the right. In the past, open farmland stretched out along undulating country to the tip of the promontory, and the mountains beyond supported people's livelihood, providing them with fuel, charcoal, and timber. Ura Bay was the scene of a bustling trade as Yanbaru boats came into port to exchange the products of the mountains for the products of the central and southern districts. The Battle of Okinawa put an end to this. Cape Henoko became a civilian detention camp. Many lives were lost. Afterwards, it became a U.S. Marine Corps facility, Camp Schwab, with munitions stockpile and training site, and the local people were driven away. To this day, that remains the case. And yet, the horizon line is intact. However, the plan to conduct wide-scale reclamation on both sides of the Cape for construction of a large new base threatens that horizon. If the spirits of the dead find themselves confronting not Nirai Kanai, but hemmed in by a wall of concrete, they will be lost with nowhere to go. The Osprey's low-frequency noise and the thunder of military aircraft will make things worse for them. This nightmare must not be allowed to happen. The sea in which the coral blooms and the dugong munch on seagrasses is the source of life and provider of blessings and fruits. I long to free this sea and these hills that give life and sustenance from the yoke of military bases. So, he's talking about Henoko. And Henoko, this is the cape he was talking about. Henoko is really near to Nago, Okinawa. Nago is one of the sister cities of Hilo, Hawaii. Sister city, Shimaitoshi. And this is being billed as a replacement for the Futenma base, which is in the Okinawan area in central Okinawa. And it's actually far more than a replacement base because Okinawan's landlocked. But if they build this, what they're going to be able to do is pull their boats right up and load them from the, these are the two runways they want to build. And they're going to dump millions and millions of concrete into the water. And the dugong he mentioned is an endangered manatee. There are only like 10 of them. and that's where it lives. And actually, this is the only living coral reef in all of Japan. And the American government and the Japanese government are both really pushing through hardcore to build this new base, even though everybody is pretty much against it. And the Americans and the Japanese, are hoping then possibly to be using it someday if the Americans left. That's why they want it. They do a lot more joint operations than they say they do. And it's basically what I see the struggle going on here right now. It's basically exactly the same fight that's going on top of Mauna Kea, and it's Standing Rock. It's military imperialism and environmental destruction. I didn't pull up a slide, but this, next one. Like, there are actually, I forget the exact number, over 30 individual military bases that America has in Okinawa. And it's all of these in red here. And Okinawa is pretty small. It's only 65 miles long. And, yeah. One of my friends who was an exchange student with me was a former soldier who had served in Okinawa. And he feels like the American military just sort of, they have the attitude that we just won the war. And this is the spoils of war, and this should be our land. And it ties in with religion because there are a lot of family shrines that are on this land. So they have to go through the gate, get permission whenever it's Obon season, and they're gonna go to their family shrine. They need to go through all the security and stuff. So it's almost like their ancestral places are occupied right now. You can't really talk about Okinawa without at least touching upon the Battle of Okinawa. And the Battle of Okinawa lasted over 2 months, and more people died in the Battle of Okinawa than Hiroshima and Nagasaki put together. There were about 1 million people on the island at that time, and between 250,000 and 1/3 people died during the battle. And they called it a typhoon of steel. And there was a lot of fierce fighting, and basically Japan kind of chose Okinawa to be the last stand for the war, because Okinawans are indigenous people. They have a culture that's different from mainland Japan historically. So it's we'll just have a battle there. They can sacrifice those people, and then mainland Japan didn't have that ground war that happened on Okinawa. And it was extremely intense. And I've got a book that I'll pass around on the topic. So this is all pictures from the war, so you can kind of get these images into your head. And I've got a lot of stuff to pass around actually, so you won't just have to listen to me. You can have interesting other things going on too. Let's also go ahead and start that. This one is a book of Okinawan proverbs, and so you can kind of understand some of their worldview by looking through these proverbs. Maybe I would point out to one song before I do, if I can find it here. Yeah. So Tinsagu Hana, I'll highlight a little bit before I pass this around. Balsam flowers. And this song, I think, kind of is, it's really important for Okinawan culture. This translation is maybe a little funky, but it's as my fingers are stained with the ink of the balsam flowers, so too is my heart stained from the teachings of my parents. You can count the stars in the sky, but the teachings of your parents are uncountable. And just as sailors use the North Star to guide their way to safety, so too can people guide their way to safety through the teachings of their parents. And a precious jewel must be polished, or it'll become tarnished. So too should you polish your heart every day. The honest person will be granted his wishes and prosper forever. And yeah, there are a lot of really cool proverbs and stuff in here. So we'll start this one over here.
Thank you.
Yeah. And what else we got? So people ask me, why are you so interested in Okinawa? I started with classical Okinawan martial arts in 1996, and I'm a 5th degree black belt right now. And we had an old man from Okinawa named Mr. Oyada who moved to Kansas City in 1977. So my teacher studied directly under him for many years, and I would see Mr. Oyada at summer camps and his birthday parties and things, and he was super scary. And at times, he could also be a lot of fun, and there are some jokes that he said that I can't tell in mixed company. And I'll pass around his book too, and he talks a lot about the castles and a lot about the culture. And I've bookmarked 2 pages in here. One of them is about Hakugin-do, which is a shrine in Itoman that has a very special story that I really love. And the other one is Itoman's Rondon Gama. Gama is a cave, and the caves are worshipped at by people. Some of them have their ancestral bones stored in them, and so they'll go and pray there during certain times. The family will be there together and pray together and talk to them. Some of them are just a cave. They're just an utaki. It's just like a nature shrine, and they'll worship and pray there too. This one's kind of hard to see from the photo, but it only goes about 10 feet back from the opening of the cave, and then it's walled off, and it would presumably go deeper. And they tell in the story how it should actually be Rondon Gama. They think that some British sailors crashed there a long time ago, so it's like spelled London, but in katakana. And that's in Itoman. There's also a lot of other interesting stuff there. And
Did they drop napalm in Okinawa?
that's a very good question.
A lot of these kids on here just look like they have like major burns. A lot of these look like they're like severe.
Well, did they have napalm in World War II? I honestly don't know.
Yeah,
Was that a Vietnam?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I don't know that answer. I know that there was a lot of flamethrower action.
Maybe that's what that is.
And I mentioned that actually. That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Because I mentioned the caves, or I'm glad you mentioned the caves, because a lot of times people took shelter in the caves, and many times the Japanese soldiers would come into the caves, kick them out of the caves, steal their food. And so that happened a lot. So there was people were happy when the Americans came, because in a lot of ways the Americans were kind of saving them from the Japanese soldiers. They have their own indigenous language in Okinawa. A lot of people got killed because they're speaking their language. The soldiers are like, you're a spy. And then they would kill them. And there are many first-hand accounts of stuff like that. I don't have a photo on this slide, but also the Turtleback tombs of Okinawa. People would hide out in the tombs during the bombings. And it's interesting, like some of them, like I said, where we can see here, this is the incense burner where you burn the incense and or leave coins. And so it's interesting to me that, they were places of worship and then they became places of shelter during the war. And so let me see if I got anything else I want to pass around before we start diving deep. And I want to find my cell phone so I can keep a watch on the time.
If anybody would like some pizza, they could grab some right now.
Yeah.
It's 7 right now.
There's pizza.
Jack,
Yeah.
do you know if those caves have been excavated or not?
They
Has
did.
any anthropologists been into those caves at all?
That's a
I can
great.
imagine if they were to use as shelter, as for that, people would probably go in there and put some of their journals or diaries, prized possessions, buried them under rocks, stuck them in a cave thing, you know what I mean? And then might have gotten captured and died before they can go back and get it. That would, just thinking about it.
Yeah. I know that's been done to a degree. If you look up I'm glad you mentioned that. There's a really great YouTube video I highly recommend. Vice Japan did a whole series on Okinawa. And one of them is about a gentleman who excavates the caves pretty much 24/7. That's his thing. And he has a museum where he collects all these artifacts. And that video is just brilliant. It's superb. And
Okinawa?
yeah, Vice Japan, Okinawa, you should find it on YouTube pretty easily. And there are a few videos in that series. That might be the second one. Highly recommended. What else? So 7. So I have 45 minutes. So I want to kind of get through everything as best as I can. So let's take it back to anthropology a little bit, because this is an anthropology class. And this is from Wikipedia on participant observation. And I brought this up because I wanted to give you guys like a good tool that you can use when you're traveling. I went to Okinawa for 2 semesters, and then after I graduated, I went back for a few months. Before I went, I picked up this book, Going Abroad, Traveling Like an Anthropologist. And Robert Gordon, let's see, he's done field research in Namibia, South Africa, Papua New Guinea, professor of anthropology at where? Anyway, he kind of tells you to like read the book, internalize all the teachings, and then leave it at home and forget it. Forget what you learned. And I did this, and I think it really kind of helped me penetrate local society and make really good connections. And he talks a lot about being humble, and I don't know, I really don't remember a lot of it, but I made a lot of notes. So this is a good title that I think is really cool. And that'll be fun to look at while I talk. And what was I going to say about participant observation? I was going to say, it's the participant comes first, It's not observer-participant, you're a participant-observer. So, you got to get your feet dirty, you got to get your hands wet. And, go with the flow. And I'm sure I had a little bit more to say about anthropology, something about our perceptions. This is a science, so it's meaning-making activity. We're a social science. Science means knowledge, knowing. And I had gotten this quote from an article that said, "We become what we attend to." So, if we're social scientists, engaged in anthropological study, we kind of are becoming the object of our study. And quantum entanglement says that every particle in the universe is actually connected anyway. So, well, I'm really, I guess, struck right now with the idea of science as meaning-making activity. And this is the ladder of inference. I learned this summer. We each have a different perception, and so our perceptions are colored by our body of experience, our knowledge, what we know, what we think is true, and we're always kind of going through our own lens. So what is really true? And this is the Senge model of the mind. Senge says that most of us are just at the surface level of awareness, but then there are these other patterns and societal structures and mental models that exist within our minds below our perceptual awareness. And that's stuff that's kind of going on with us 24/7. And I guess with Okinawan culture or Japanese culture, they would be a little bit different than an American mental model or structure of society. And ecopsychology ties into this because of the notion of ecological identity and the idea that the land kind of informs who we are as a person when we grow. There's a biophilia hypothesis that says that human beings need contact with the land for optimal human health. You need to be in contact with nature. And let's talk about a couple of these things really quickly. So, like environmental psychology, there have been a lot of studies done that show how the environment affects human beings, affects our minds and our bodies even. So, living in the ghetto does kind of bring you down. Living in somewhere with a lot of nature, like Hilo or Okinawa, is gonna, change your mind differently. So, like, for example, rats raised in a really simple environment have smaller brains than rats that are raised in a larger environment. And ontogenic crippling is the concept that we have key stages that we're growing through, and when we get to like a threshold stage, in modern society, we often basically get crippled in our development, and instead of growing into a new level of awareness and capability, we are kind of crippled and we just stay at a lower level of awareness and ability. And you're getting a really brief download. I'm keeping this like super short, like just a few minutes. Like we're really helpless human beings compared to our Paleolithic ancestors. Like if the Industrial Growth Society wasn't here, if the ships weren't coming, you know, how many of us could hunt for food, could forage for food, could really survive? If we were to meet a Paleolithic tribe, they'd be like, this guy's fucking useless. Like, look at him. He's like a child or something. And collective amnesia kind of comes from Velikovsky. He thinks that there were these like huge cataclysms in prehistory, and that they were so traumatic that as a species we have forgotten our human history. And it's shown that when people undergo traumatic events, their consciousness can splinter into like dissociative identity disorder. You've got different personalities. You just have to suppress the memories because stuff is just so intense. And perception I'll talk about in the next slide. Here is a big book on the Ryukyu kingdom stuff, and I bookmarked a page that has a photo of people praying. So this is a lot of fun. And where should I go? And let's see if there's anything else I wanted to mention. Basically, ecopsych, it's sort of like I used to say healing, you know, people and healing the earth go hand in hand. Now I realize maybe it's more about changing people's beliefs on a deeper level. And this first quote ties into anthropology, or really anything, and I'm really struck with this Sewell article. She says, perception, consciousness, and behavior are as radically interdependent as the rest of our biosphere. Thus, perceptual shifts alter consciousness, consciousness alters behavior, and even unconscious leanings alter perceptions. And so, perception, you know, we deal through reality with our perceptions, so if we want to look at anything, we have to consider our perceptions in the equation, because we cannot remove our perceptions from our awareness of the universe. And then this last quote, I guess, ties in with the biophilia a little bit. We need contact with the environment for healthy development. And since this is the religion class, I was definitely wanted to mention that the word religion, as it's stated here, means reconnecting. And community, I've found, is really important in Okinawa. I think as an ecopsychologist that we kind of heal each other through community and connection. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the Okinawan religion more hardcore. And last thing about ecopsychology, I guess what I'm saying is I think that the Okinawan perception of religion and the Okinawan perception is probably definitely colored by their natural environment, by the ocean that they see every day, by the hills and the fishing and the local festivals and all of the interactions with nature that they always have. And on the subject of participant observation, I want to say, like, you know, when I did my presentation at the UH Student Research Conference, I talked about Okinawan endangered languages, and someone had commented on YouTube, a really brilliant comment. It was very, very respectful. It was maybe one of the best comments in the history of YouTube, because he was an academic and it was so long, and he gave me like legitimate criticism very politely on everything. And he said, like, you're just labeling the Okinawans. You're like an outsider that's labeling them. What he didn't know is that I would never make any claim to be Okinawan by ancestry, but I've been volunteering with Hui Okinawa, the local Okinawan society, since 2010. And I've been really involved with it. I teach Uchinaguchi, the endangered language, at the children's cultural summer camp. I've taught karate there. So this is a community that I'm a member of. I see myself as a member of the Okinawan community. And especially in Okinawa, from the year and a half I lived there. And so my perception is as a member, but who is also an outsider, because I moved there from somewhere else. So one thing that I want to start off with is the Hinukan. And Nu is like the no for Japanese, and kan for God instead of kami. So Hinukan. And this is a hearth god that, this is a shrine that people have in their homes that they take care of. And this is a resource I can share with you. Japan Update is a weekly newspaper that they publish in Okinawa. And it has stuff about events that are going on each week in Okinawa. It also has cultural articles like this. I picked it up sometimes when I was there just because it was nice to have some English reading material. I suspect that it is maybe published by or funded by the American military because the articles, they are sometimes very pro-military. I don't know for sure, you know. But here are a couple pictures of Hinukan altars at people's houses. And let me see if there was anything I wanted to say from this article.
Well, hey, are those 2 cups of tea or those 2 cups of like sand?
Good question. They will have,
What kind of greens are those 2?
so like you can see salt in the back here, you can see water on the left. I would guess that that's awamori on the right in the smaller cup. Sake is brewed. Awamori is distilled out of rice. It's an Okinawan distilled liquor. And so yeah, salt, rice, water, awamori, flowers, incense.
So a faded god is a happy god, huh?
And it may be related to the Korean god. Usually the woman in the house takes care of the altar. When the kids go off to their own house, they'll take some of the ashes from the family altar and then put them on their own. And yeah, this really is totally a transpersonal and eco-psychological ritual, you know, non-corporeal spirits. Every family does it a little bit differently. They all have their own spin on it. And that's a custom I really like. And so this ties into ecology because the word ecology actually comes from the Greek oikos, meaning the home. So the word ecology literally means the study of houses. And the word economy kind of means the management of the houses. And so I thought it was important to start within the home because the Hinukan is a shrine that's within the home. And we can look at ecologies going into larger and larger levels. So there's like the word the holon, which is like an individual unit within itself, but then it's also part of a larger unit. So you can look at like the cell being part of an organ in the body, the organ being a holon of the body. And like with people in a home, you've got a family member that's a part of the family is a part of the community, leading to and that's just people. Then you've got more than human ecologies and ecologies and habitats and there's another word I'm looking for anyway. So let me see, so we've got 30 minutes. Let's pass around some more stuff and before I start on this story. So this is Nakagusuku Castle, and there's I've got one-page bookmarked here. And I don't have pictures to show you, but I can almost kind of talk to that community aspect of Nakagusuku Castle. I went to the festival the first year they had it, and it was the coolest thing in the world. There, besides me and, let me see, a friend from Australia and Hong Kong, she was kind of half and half, and a friend from Spain. And I only saw one other foreigner there. It was like the coolest thing in the world. The next year after that, there was another festival that was a little bit different with, they projected stuff onto the castle. And people come to the castle to pray. You will see at different nature shrines, like our picture, like the well pictured here, people come and pray at the shrines. And mainly old people. I never really saw any young people praying at the different shrines. And then this book that I'll pass around is from Haebaru Town Museum. And this is one of the most powerful museums you'll see in Okinawa. And this one has a really great, there were young middle school women that were pressed into service. And there was a cave that they dug where there was an underground army hospital. And it was brutal, uncut. And these girls cooked rice and took it to them every day. My dance teacher took me there and she showed me where they cooked the rice and how they had to walk so far in the rainy season while the bombs are dropping to get to the hospital to then feed the soldiers. And there are people dying and being euthanized and like all this just like hardcore stuff going on. And this museum was one of the best museums I saw in Okinawa because they show how the religion changed over time and how the Utaki were transformed from nature shrines into imperial shrines that were more Shinto in character. And it had just a really amazing presentation on all of Okinawan history. And there's also a lot of stuff in here, like this really cool stuff about the prayers for child conception, prayers for safe delivery, childbirth, really awesome, cool customs in here. You can do a whole presentation just on the hand tattoos that the women had on their hands. Just really special, cool cultural stuff going on all the time throughout history in Okinawa. And this flyer is from Seifwa Utaki, which is one of the most sacred places in Okinawan religion. And now I'm going to tell a little first-hand account. So here's where the participant observation comes in. I got to hang out with the Samakawa-cho Hatagashira Club. And Hatagashira is a custom where you balance this flag, basically, this heavy flag. And it's only in a few places. And this ties into religion because every New Year's, they meet after they're done with the family stuff in the evening, so everybody's showing up about 10. And then they get together and they're practicing because then we perform every year at the Shuri Castle Festival on the 3rd. And then after, midnight, New Year's, people start Hatsumo Day, where they go and they're praying at the different temples for the New Year's. And so it was probably 2 a.m. by the time we finally got there. And, oh geez, I wonder if we're gonna have audio. That's okay. No, let's see. So note to self, check audio next time. And there's something in here anthropologically about enactment of identity maybe, and when you're put on a costume, you become a different person. And so there's we get together as a community, we practice Hatagashira, we do our thing, and then we after we've cleaned up and stuff, then we go to the different temples and pray at the New Year. And let's see if I can. Okay, so one thing on the Ankokuzenji Temple that's there in Shuri. Okay, so this is really cool. There is a bell there, and the bell was cast in 1456, and then it was going to be melted in the war. They found it in 1962, and then it got taken back. vibrations by wind.
Is that why I'm seeing the camera shake and move and everybody like, that's the vibration from the bell?
I think that's just my hand. I can't remember if I did, you know, the, what's it called, you know, the shaking.
Oh, what's in that top left one?
Yeah. That's the next lecture. Okay, so yeah, and that's one temple that's by Shuri. And then Shuri Kanai-do is another one, right by Shuri Castle. And this is kind of cute. There's this dog that meditates at this Zen temple. So yeah, Conan the Chihuahua.
I'm a chef. And a pink.
Welcome to the Industrial Growth Society.
It's getting super annoying. It's like on everything now.
A Zen Buddhist temple in southern Japan has even the dogs praying. This 1.5-year-old black and white Chihuahua named Conan joins in on daily prayers, sitting up on his hind legs and putting his front paws together before the altar. The dog is seen here praying that someone will take him to a normal home where he can just chase tennis balls and bite mailmen. The pup's master says it took him only a few days to learn the motions. Now he's trying to teach him how to meditate. Good luck. For MSNBC.com, I'm Willie Geist.
Southern Japan, did they really mean Okinawa or what?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right by
okay.
Shuri Castle.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they didn't even want to say Okinawa.
Yeah, they could have at least said Okinawa Prefecture.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so here is the bell from the first one is in this booklet. This is like a Shuri Castle tourist booklet. And let's see. Okay, so Ghosts in Okinawa Perception. This book is by a systems theorist, Laszlo, and he says what we currently call the paranormal or supernormal should in fact be regarded as normal. He talks a lot about quantum entanglement, and one of the big finds for me in this book is there are some scientific studies that had people meditate together in a group with, even though they could not see or hear each other, within a few seconds all their brain waves just lined up completely. Wow. And in another experiment, they had a healer work on someone who was in a completely different room, and his brain waves aligned to the healer's brain waves really quickly. And so I'm mentioning it because of this first quote. I had coworkers in Okinawa that frequently saw ghosts. So the first, I worked at Eikai Kyoshitsu at an English conversation school, and one of the coworkers was really intuitive, and he would always be seeing ghosts and spirits, and be like eating at a restaurant and see an old man that's sitting at the table that's like a spirit. And he would see them in the building too, and that was a fairly new building, I would say less than 20 years old. And another time, one of my coworkers, another coworker there, who she wasn't perceptive like that in her opinion at all. She told, like after work, you know, we're all cleaning up one day, and you sweep and you mop like 2 days a week, but the rest of the days you're just like sweeping or whatever. And one of the classrooms, she said that she saw a little girl wearing like a one-piece dress, and that she was looking at her because all the kids had already left the school, and then the girl just like disappeared before her eyes and just disintegrated. And that lady like never saw stuff like that. And so that was and there was one room in there that always creeped the kids out, and I did have some creepy feelings there once or twice when I was cleaning up. So here's a video of an actual ghost in Okinawa that was caught on camera.
I just see like a lot of ghosts on camera.
Yep, this is from the security cameras at Kadena Air Force Base. Come on.
think there's another tab.
It's gonna move now. It's gonna move. Watch it.
How do I do it then? Oh, there we go.
You see?
Yeah, I see the shadow
You
moving.
see how it moves? So
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
right.
one, and
Is
then
that behind the sign?
Another
Yeah.
it's gonna fly away.
Yeah, I get you. Because I double clicked it. Huh. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate that.
It's gonna move now. It's gonna move. Watch it. You see?
Yeah, I see the shadow moving.
You see how it moves? So
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
right.
one, and
Is that
then
behind the sign? Yeah.
it's gonna fly away in a little bit.
Right there, small. Hold on.
You wanna see it again? Or you want?
Hold on.
Yeah, you
Do one and pause it.
It goes
Yeah.
right there.
It's standing like ready to go.
It's right there.
It's right there,
Yeah,
like
now it moves
it's
right
it's
there.
right it's right in the fence. It's moving right there.
It's gonna go up in a little bit.
Okay, so the rest of that's just them talking and looking at it again. Okay, so just one of my philosophies in life is there are more things in heaven and earth Horatio than are dreamt of in our philosophies. That's Hamlet. So the ghost stuff happened at Max 21 where I taught school. And so now I'd introduce Kakinohana Fiijaa. So this is one of my favorite shrines in Okinawa. There is basically just well, you'll see with the video. And I never intended to make this public. It was just for a friend who, their kid was doing like a Flat Stanley thing. And so, a friend from high school, so there were only 2 of us living internationally. And so she wanted us to especially send in a photo. So I thought I'll do something like extra special for the kid. And this was what I've made. We won't watch the whole thing, we'll just check it out. Okay, so my name's Jack, and I think Flat Stanley is here at Kakinohana Fiijaa, so we're going to look around and try to find him. This is a sacred spring here in Nanjo, in an area of southern Okinawa. So let's see if we can find Flat Stanley. And if I got your name wrong, Stanley, I'm sorry. So this is watercress growing here at this farmer's field. And so there's a couple friends. So, okay, that's... And we can see a pool down here. There's like some natural crustaceans there. So I would always see people praying at this shrine every time I went. And there were some shrines you wouldn't see people praying at every time you went there. And I'm going to get some water from here to take home and drink. And here he is. Stanley and Hinukan there. So Stanley is doing Hatsumode. He came to this place to pray for the new year because the new year just started, so it's traditional in Okinawa to go to different sacred shrines. Yeah, so then we talk like I always forget the water's warm when I go in. And let's see if there's anything else worth showing. There's snails, there's taro, growing, we've got Chibario. Chibario is Okinawan for gambate. Okay, so let me...
What does gambate mean?
Go for it. Yeah, you can do it.
Right. Don't give up.
Yeah, don't give up. Thank you. So, okay, and the first time I went there, I ran into a lady. She told me that her friend had actually seen the spirit, the kami-sama that lives there. And I was like, well, what did it look like? And she was like, oh, I didn't think to ask. And I'm like, well, that was my first question. What does, anyway, that is a place. The Utaki are the sacred places in Okinawa. They're usually nature places that are, near the villages. In that pamphlet, they talked about the transformation of the Utaki and how that happened. Seifwa Utaki is one of the most sacred places in all of Okinawa. And it's this natural limestone formation. You guys saw the pamphlet. It used to be only the Yuta, the female shamans, were allowed there. The king would go around to a couple different areas in a pilgrimage every year in southern Okinawa. This was one he would go to, but he, to my understanding, the king himself could not go in there.
He would have to put on women's clothes.
Okay.
But occasionally he did go in, is what I heard, so that's pretty cool of him.
Thank you.
He couldn't go in male clothing, that was definite.
Probably some theme there, like where it's
Full of the gods, is that gonna work?
Right. I wonder if he dressed up in the traditional white robes like some of them did. And this was like a picture from Katsuden Castle. And they talk about the Hinukan on the somewhere. Anyway, this is kind of what I was talking about with this sense of identity being formed by the natural world and the environment. And so let's talk about Ohayo Ojisan a little bit. We're about at the end here. There's an article I wrote about Ohayo Ojisan in this, and I wanted to show you guys a video. There was the best video of him, and it just got taken down from YouTube this week or something. I saw it last week. I didn't have the foresight to download it. It's been up for years. So this guy is a religious character in Okinawa. He dresses up with flowers or tangerines on his head. He waves at cars when they drive by. He picks a different place in Okinawa, and then whether it's like the Sansan Maru in Ginowan, the 330, which is a highway, he'll be by the Ginowan town center. I met him in Tomigusku when he was across the street from where I was working. And from what I can tell, he'll stay there from Monday to Friday. Saturday he'll go somewhere else. And he's just a character that everybody knows. There's a Facebook fan page somebody made. It's got 10,000 likes.
Wow.
Everybody knows him in Okinawa. And he's 80 years old. He is a character. He studied at a seminary in Tokyo. He worked in other prefectures, and then he moved back to Okinawa when he retired. And some people think he's crazy. They think he's rich. They think his son died in a car wreck, so that's why he waves at people and tells them to be safe. I don't know about any of that. I talked to him a lot, and I didn't ask because I wanted to be polite. Hey, did your son die in a car wreck? No, And but he's such a trip. He can talk about astrophysics in English, and he's and Japanese. He's learning French. He's 80 years old. He was 10 years old during the Battle of Okinawa.
Wow.
And he told me his life story one day, starting from the end of the Battle of Okinawa. And he talked about being in different POW camps and getting moved around, finally getting to go back home to Itoman. The army set up some movie theaters, and he saw a couple movies. He saw Tarzan. And, when I was in the army, was trying to help out the people post-war. And
what kind of motorcycle is that?
it's like a scooter, basically.
Okay, yeah,
It's just a scooter, right?
Okay.
But he'll have these traffic poles with streamers and balloons and I should have put the photo on there next time. The flag, that he has, he says is the flag of his religion, and he says that there's no Buddha, there's no God. This world is all that exists, but he feels that he's going to live to be 10 million years old. And he knows so much about astrophysics. He loves talking about that stuff. He's a total trip. And
He speaks French, or he wants to emphasize French more.
he's,
Franco Moto Kyocho Shai.
oh yeah, that's the screen grab from another video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the one I wanted, was all in Japanese. This one, once he found out the guys could speak English, then he switched to English. And yeah, he's super cool. He's one of my 3 Okinawan heroes, I think. And I didn't even realize what an influence he kind of was to me.
I can sort of see you taking over for him.
Yeah, right on.
Carrying on the proud tradition of Okinawan religion.
Yeah, for real.
See that?
I didn't know what an influence he had been until months later after I'd been wearing these every day for months. I was like, oh, Ohayo Ojisan.
We might want to see, what people might want to ask you.
Yeah. I think I'm POW. I just was going to say what is indigenous and define that. Manu Meyer,
yeah.
she defines indigenous as continuity. And so that's basically everything that's what I got to. And I really appreciate your time. And yeah, let's do questions.
So many times when Americans go to another culture, there is a draw to the culture with a sense of awe and a sense of disdain for the Western American culture, the imperialism, things of that. I couldn't tell either way with you, and I was wondering if you have, which was very interesting to me. So I saw you with that that fascination that you have, and you've only talked about the positive inputs of America's presence there. You never really gave it a.
Interesting. Yeah. Did I talk about only the positive inputs? I mean,
Well, about the people, and they were happy to greet them there, and
well, yeah, but also keep in mind I mentioned a third of the country is still occupied by America, and I definitely don't want them to build a new American base. And
Do they have to build a base on that peninsula? They can't build it on the other side? I mean, if that's the only area
Yeah.
where that...
Well, because they did they sort of looked around and decided that a long time ago.
yeah, and here's the deal. I have a graphic of this somewhere. Okinawa is 0.5% of the landmass of Japan, but 70% of the American military bases are all in Okinawa. So there's such a high number of soldiers that there's a huge crimes. There's always
Right, I mean, I can...
so it doesn't have to be there. Okinawans, what I'm trying to say is they want it moved to another prefecture. It's an unfair burden for the prefecture.
I mean, I can see how they trying to limit American presence all into one island. From what I understand between Japan and Okinawa is the history there is not good. Each have disdain for the other. You know what I mean? I guess the Japanese and the main. I'm no expert, but anywho, I was saying I'm on, I can totally feel the Okinawa people and all that stuff, but I'm worried about the manatees, to be perfectly honest with you. There's only 10 left.
Good point.
You know what I mean? That right there. There's
Right.
only 10 left, and if that's where they live and that's the only thing they eat, no base.
Right.
Move the base 10 miles south. I mean, of course, the Okinawans don't want it on Okinawa, but I don't know how to argue that point with them. I mean, you can definitely argue about the manatees, and that would bring worldwide attention. Hey, you cannot endanger a species because you want to add another 20,000 foot, 20,000 square foot or 20,000 square mile Navy base. You know what I mean? Put it down the way a little bit.
And it's not just the manatees, because like I said, it's the only living coral reef in all of Japan. And then there's a forest right by there. The friend I mentioned who was a serviceman there, he is pointing out to me that there are 9 endangered bird species in that forest that's right by where they want to build a new base. And nobody's even talking about those endangered birds. And the way the government came, because it's America, the Endangered Species Act doesn't apply. And they're doing all they can to Kathleen Kennedy, the new ambassador from Japan, they're not having it. And yeah, it's
And another thing too, they need to take climate change into account. I mean, you know, like, that water's only gonna go up, they should just build it on higher ground, down the way a little bit.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah, because time is short. Anybody else have questions? Please.
If you just had any comment about your own feelings about that, you said it was interesting. About America versus Okinawa.
Yeah, what can I say? I mean, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. I know the Okinawans had a true aloha spirit, so I never saw them really judge American soldiers individually. They were always welcome with cultural activities, whether it's martial arts or anything, you know. They welcome them with open arms. And that's normal people too. That's not just shopkeepers that are going to make money. And they've just got a real aloha spirit.
Kinda like the Marshallese.
And yeah, you'll have to ask me another time because
Well,
I got a lot of.
Culturally, you find that they act a little bit like minorities do in other cultures, and that is they're fairly humble and understanding and friendly to outsiders.
Yeah, and yeah, it's even kind of historically based, right? Because when Japan was isolationist, Okinawa was free trader, and they were kind of like a hub port. They were like a hub of trade throughout the east at that time. They had a trading relationship, a tributary relationship with China. Their boats went all over the place. They were really skilled traders. And then, yeah, historically with Satsuma and Japan, like kind of taking over the trade, and the Okinawans were still trading, but the Japanese were getting their stuff through the Okinawans and yada yada yada.
Let's
So
see, other questions. I wanted to ask, is there any visible sovereignty movement outside of the protest against the bases and stuff?
It's really tiny from what I can tell in Okinawa. I may be wrong, but you know, a lot of the people, many, be careful what words you choose, right? People of Okinawan descent in Hawaii are much more vocal about Okinawan sovereignty, in my experience,
Yeah.
than Okinawans within Okinawa.
Okay.
Yeah. And I, to be honest, I guess I don't truly know a whole lot about the sovereignty movement within Okinawa. I know it's there, but it's small.
So is it Okinawans that are protesting in the military building, or is that foreigners?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of, like, they put forward propaganda, you know, that says that it's people coming in from the mainland protesting.
That's what they always say everywhere in the world. In
Right.
Syria, they're blaming all of the rebels on, outside agitators. That's the most common excuse given. But
Yeah, but it's the elders. It's
Yeah.
mainly the elders more than the kids. The kids have been brainwashed so much that they consider themselves pretty much even ethnically Japanese. The history of the Ryukyu Kingdom is not taught in schools. A lot of them, they don't really even know about their own history. Like I compared it to Hawaiian history. Like kids here, they can tell you the facts about Iliukalani, the Marines, the takeover, sovereignty. They're educated about it to a degree that they are not in Okinawa. And
Fairly recent too, but yeah.
true. And that may be the education system, because there's you have to take tests to entrance exams for middle schools, for high schools, for college. So then they say, oh, we can't teach that because it's not important, it's not on the test.
How long ago did Japan take over Okinawa, or occupy it?
1879.
1879. This is like,
That's when it was official. For hundreds of years they've been controlling the trade.
From
before that.
1600, they were controlled by Satsuma,
Yeah.
which used that connection to bring in firearms for their revolution. And then they became an independent prefecture in 1868 under Japan directly, under the central government.
And let's segue that into
were Tao.
Yeah, but thank you so much. That was fascinating.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, you brought it to life.
Take
That was
advantage of the
good.
little people. Big people are supposed to